Hey DS, it's time for an update on the COVID situation as the situation continues to unfold in our community and across the nation. So I last reached out to you on March 18th and a lot has changed since then. First, I want to say I hope that you're staying healthy and safe during this time, and I want to thank everybody for their flexibility and resiliency as we go through this. So here's my assessment. We've moved to what we think is a sustainable model for maintaining our essential services while still responding to changing situations and conditions as the virus spreads and affects more people. So the bottom line is that most of our work continues, but in some areas the demand has dropped, or we can afford to go at a slower pace, or defer some work. Ultimately, we had to make some decisions bureau by bureau, and even work unit by work unit. We tried to be consistent, but each work unit had different dynamics, different demands, and resources, so I urge everyone to really not get too hung up on what a different unit is doing and whether or not you think it's fair what's going on over there versus where your unit is. Because the reality is that some units had, the workload has changed, and others it hasn't changed or it's even increased. So DS and the county leadership are very cognizant of the different roles the different agencies are playing. We're trying to recognize, compensate, and accommodate the dynamics of each unit. But we won't get it perfect, so just bear with us that we're doing our best. Also realize that the response to this emergency encompasses the whole county, and many agencies outside DES are deploying staff also directly into this emergency just like we do. So here are some examples of what we're doing. I'll start with our field workers first. So at the plant, the vast majority of people have to show up, but we split the maintenance workers, for example, to report at different times to limit their exposure, and we're trying to reduce risk for the operators also. At solid waste, we've staggered some start times for crews, and they are deploying directly to their vehicles. We're trying to keep nearly all service going in solid waste, but we've cut back on the number of hours and convenience for things like hazardous waste drop-off. We've also canceled our popular spring e-care event. Our contractor, in the meantime, is trying to keep up with the 30% increase in tonnage. So many people are at home that there's generating all this additional tonnage. So we're trying to find ways to scale that back. At Water, Sewer, Streets, we also changed the arrival and deployment, and effective today, we moved up into a rotational model for our most exposed crews. So we'll maintain some at home, and some are subject to deployment if needed for in-depth or emergency work. At the Equipment Bureau, the workload on tasks like school buses has obviously dropped off, and we also started rotating some crews. Our inspectors and construction managers are still doing their field work, but in a different way that tries to limit human interaction. Facilities maintenance is also on a rotational basis. Given that many facilities are closed, we have some flexibility. So the intent of all this is to limit crew exposure and keep enough people healthy and available for performing our essential missions and services to our community through the long haul of this event. So let me now shift to those who are eligible for telework and they're doing meetings, phone calls, and using the Teams application a lot. So much of our normal work continues. Everything from planning to design to decision support, communications, budget work, and of course paying the bills. So a small number of employees have found a rhythm where they come into the office once a week to process things like paper checks that are still coming in. Others are, of course, welcome to come in if they need a break from kids at home or they need a place for quiet and concentration. Parking is free at the Bosman Government Center right now. So across the workforce, we've seen many people using civil leave, and we just closed our first pay period, so we don't yet have the data on how much civil leave we used. But I just want to share my thoughts on that because although it's a generous thing for those who really need it, it also has the potential for misuse by those who don't really need it. So my expectations are pretty basic. Show up when you're asked to show up unless you're feeling ill. And have honest conversations with your supervisor about how much and when you can either telework or show up, or if you're caring for kids or elderly and don't have access to your normal care. It is really important to have a common understanding on expectations with your supervisor. while still maintaining that family health and balance, and sharing the burden with your spouse or family member, because they may also be trying to get kids, help them with distance learning or whatever the situation is. For those that are trades and we are sending people home on civil leave on a rotational basis, you're expected to be at home, following the CDC guidelines, and reachable on your phone in case we need more support. So if you're sent home for a week and you want to take vacation, you need to get vacation leave approved. If you're in a situation where you think you couldn't be recalled to come back and help, you need to let your supervisor know that in advance. So I'll be issuing a written directive on that to kind of clarify what the expectations are. Read it, follow it when we get that out there. Also, we expect you to be doing some training at home because that opportunity is there, when you got some downtime. It's either going to be via Taleo or using Teams. So keep your eyes open for a rollout. And if you're new to the technology, just bear with it and learn it. Something will probably come out later this week. So I'm sure many of you have heard the county manager will be proposing a new budget based on our economic realities, and we won't likely get pay increases next fiscal year. And so we can also expect some slowdown in hiring. So we don't have all those details yet, but in the meantime, continue to interview and make offers when you found excellent candidates. So while the budget thing is a little disappointing at one level, we really got to count our blessings because we are employed and there are no plans to cut positions. Many in our community and across the nation are facing job loss and much, much more. So for those of you who are doing hiring right now, there's a new hiring process being rolled out across the county, including DES, effective, I think, on April 1st. So please work with your HR staff for more details on that. Catherine and her HR team will be issuing a memo on that tomorrow. So the situation is going to continue to change. I was preparing for this video, and in this time, we had Governor Hogan and Governor Northam in Maryland and Virginia, respectively, announced stay-at-home orders. But if you're an essential employee and you're still reporting to work, it's really important that you have that letter because we're not sure how they're going to try to enforce that. So you should have got that letter last week and carry that letter with you. So if people stop and ask you why you're going to work, where you're working, and you got that to cover you. Just be flexible. We're trying to do our normal mission, but we also may need to support other priorities in the community and doing something different that we never anticipated. So for example, our transit team is looking at a tasking to help support getting people to food at schools. During this time, it's really important people can feel socially isolated. So stay in touch with each other and support each other. As the number of cases grow, and frankly, as the number of deaths grow, it's inevitable that someone on our team is going to be touched by this. And as we separate by social distancing and shifting things out and rotating on the crews, it's kind of easy to lose touch with each other. So I really want you to make the effort to reach out to each other, whether it's on a phone call or text or whatever it is that works for you, and say, hey, just touching base, everything okay with you and your family? It's really important that we stay connected during this time. So on a positive note, normal life continues in some areas, including hiring and some of the hiring and promotions. So I like to do those promotion ceremonies. Usually I stand about right here. But and so I may have to modify that for how I do these for a while. But so in the meantime, here's a quick shout out to some recent promotions. Anand Manapakond, he got promoted to a construction management specialist working with Carla. Kwame Irby was promoted to Water Sewer Streets Master Technician. Samuel Crastro promoted to Water Sewer Streets Equipment Operator. Christopher Maltby promoted to Traffic Signals Field Engineer. And Daniel Thompson was promoted to a Lead Trades Worker 2 in the Solid Waste Bureau. So congratulations to all you guys who are being promoted. It's time to celebrate, and even though we're in kind of a rough time right now. So overall, I'm really proud of our positive attitude and how we're delivering those essential services as the situation keeps changing. And of course, it's taking longer than we all had hoped. But I really appreciate appreciate all that you're doing. And I know if we continue to work together, we'll get through this. And we're going to help our community weather the storm on this as best they possibly can. Thanks, and hope to do more videos with you on the future on this.